Welcome to Monday, the 24th day of January, 2022. This Day Weather Podcast brought to you by Chugwater Chili, the gourmet spice of Western life. Check out Chugwater Chili Seasoning and also their hot chili seasoning. Chugwater Chili is award-winning blend, perfect for chili seasoning. That's a great way to spice up your chili, your tacos, and a lot more. Get yours today by using discount code ChugwaterDon for 20% off. Chugwater Chili, the spice of Western life. Well, to start the week, we've got a little bit of snow on the way. The system is going to drop out of British Columbia and Alberta into the northern and central Rockies and also part of the high plains over the next 24 hours. Light snow and colder air is going to develop from the northern areas to the southern areas. Now, there's actually going to be a decent snow for parts of eastern Colorado, parts of western Kansas, parts of New Mexico. There'll be snow in Montana, South Dakota, Wyoming, parts of Colorado's mountains and Wyoming's mountains, and western Nebraska. But an area that has been really, really dry this winter, that would be eastern Colorado, western Kansas. They're going to get some nice moisture, not a big storm, but some nice moisture for those winter wheat areas. Now, we're going to be chilly throughout the week as northwest flow aloft will be with us. Another system will come Wednesday night and the Thursday with a few flurries. But the system coming in tonight and tomorrow is the biggest weather event of the week. We could end up with another nice weekend. I know a lot of folks had some really enjoyable weather to be outdoors in this past weekend. We might make it two in a row. We do expect changes after February 1st. We talked about that last week. We'll talk more about changes coming in February. And we also have some interesting data to show you about how the Tonga volcano has actually impacted sea surface temperatures. First of all, though, let's show you some great photos from the weekend. David Reed and Lander sends us some high, wispy cirrus clouds. That's what you would call fair weather cirrus clouds with the fair weather that we had this weekend. And then that led to a great sunset in Lander later in the day. Now, as we go forward, this is what we're looking at with precipitation here over the next 2 to 3 days. The green and blue areas showing where the heavier moisture will fall. And as I mentioned earlier, parts of northeastern Colorado here into western Kansas is going to be picking up several inches of snow, even down into the panhandles in northeastern New Mexico. Now, by nobody's standards, is this a big snow event, but this is bigger than this part of the region has seen in a while. We've been talking about this as one of the snow holes in the region, but this is really nice to see. Now, you can see the mountains, and some areas both east and west of the divide are going to get into the act. You can see it here as well with that heavier snow in the pink areas here. Then also look along the Front Range. The Front Range of Colorado's mountains, Denver could be getting into the act as well. But you probably are noticing some holes, little snow holes. Here's one just off the Palmer Divide into Colorado Springs. Since we're going to have a northeast wind, upslope wind, the east-west ridges of the Palmer Divide, to some extent the Cheyenne Ridge, and also up here in the Black Hills, what happens is northeast winds are downslope on these terrain features while they're upslope for areas on the high plains. So Colorado Springs tends to miss out. Also, up here in northeastern Wyoming in the shadow of the Black Hills, places around Newcastle, down into Lusk, they get downsloped with those northeast winds. You also get a snow hole here in the Bighorn Basin and also the upper Green River Basin as winds are coming downhill off the Wind Rivers. Wind direction, especially in the winter, is really critical on who gets snow and not. Even the smallest terrain feature can help enhance your snow with upslope or downslope on the other side of the terrain feature. This is the system that's coming in. This is as of this morning at 500 millibars. You can see a very organized, very impressive polar vortex spinning around some very cold Arctic air over Hudson Bay. That's feeding the coldest air into the Great Lakes and New England and into those parts of the country here while we're just on the western edge. But see this little dimple right here? This little wave is going to translate south and east tonight and into tomorrow. It's going to amplify a little bit with a low over Salt Lake City. So there's going to be a push of colder Arctic air upslope against the divide, while this system will bring moisture and air up and over the cold air. We call that overrunning. That's why there's going to be that enhanced band of snow in eastern Colorado and western Kansas late tonight and tomorrow with lighter snows elsewhere. Now, by the weekend, we have broad areas of high pressure returning to the western United States. They could end up with another major winter storm in the northeast United States and the mid-Atlantic this weekend. So they could have another major winter storm. Well, out here in the west, we're going to have high pressure moving for the weekend. And really nothing too big. This is not much of a system moving into California. So we've got the system tonight and tomorrow that'll make it cold, bring a bit of snow. It'll be chilly through the week under northwest flow, maybe some flurries again Thursday, but really not much going on after the first system. However, let's go out further. Now, we talked about February 1st being kind of a turning point. Look what happens. High pressure starts to build up in the Aleutians and up in the Gulf of Alaska, and we've got a big low off the British Columbia coast, another low right here, and notice instead of low pressure in the east, high pressure is building. And there's sort of a readjustment of the polar vortex getting a little bit more elongated by February 1st. What's going to happen as we go into February, a westward shift of the stormy weather that's concentrated here will be now moving into the far west into the month of February. Now, by the second half of the forecast period, this is through February 2nd, this is for early next week through the middle of next week. Notice, see the bright colors moving back into the Pacific Northwest, even getting into central and southern California. Heavier snows now moving into the northern and central Rockies of Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Montana, and some moisture streaking out on the plains as Arctic air will start to leak in early February and will be overrun by Pacific moisture. If we were to go out to the weekend of February 5th, the high pressure gets better established. We see a big plunge of winds aloft coming all the way in from the Yukon and into the Northwest Territories into the western United States. Notice the axis, the polar vortex axis, gets lined up southwest to northeast. So what this will do is this will bring pushes of much colder Canadian air into the west, then eventually the southern plains as we get into the month of February. So January here in the western United States has been, really quite honestly just very, very average. But February things are going to change. This is the temperature anomaly by next weekend, the weekend of the 5th of February, the weekend after this one. So you can see the purple poised at the U.S.-Canadian border wanting to make its way south into the early parts of February. Now, I want to quickly discuss the Tonga volcano. When it went off, we talked about how the ash, the gases getting into the stratosphere may or may not affect climate conditions across, especially the southern hemisphere. It really depends if there's other eruptions. But not only is the atmosphere impacted, but I want to show you the sea surface temperature anomalies picked up by the satellite imagery is showing that the Tonga volcano has caused a small patch of colder than sea surface temperature conditions. This is just to highlight how Mother Nature can change things really quickly and how volcanoes are a bit of a wild card. So to give you reference, here's the La Nina cold sea surface temperatures right here, which we've been talking about for the last year and a half. You see this little patch of blue right here? That is from the Tonga volcano. And notice this patch of warmer water off the coast of Australia across the southern parts south of the equator in the southern hemisphere. But due to the volcanic eruption, the ash cloud, and the other things going on, look at what changes over time. This is before the eruption. This is as it's occurring on the 14th of January, and this is just right after that. So when you look at how things can change very, very quickly, this is what makes weather forecasters pull their hair out, especially when you try to do long-range forecasting, is Mother Nature throws you these wild cards, these unexpected things that happen across the world that can affect the weather and climate, both short-term and long-term. We'll talk to you on Tuesday. Have yourself a good Monday.